What is the best driver of 2025? We've tested every single driver this year, and now it's time to lock in and find out what is the best driver. Now, we're going to look at the overall, but I've also divided it into some subcategories as well. What's the best looking driver? What is the longest driver this year? What driver is the straightest? And then our overall winner. And it surprised me, this data. That's not a spoiler alert. It's just not the club that I thought would come out on top. Now, these are the drivers that we shortlisted to complete this test. We have the Callaway Elite, TaylorMade Qi10, Ping G430, Cobra DS Adapt, Tour Edge Exotics Max, Sub 70895, Oxomity, Titleist GT3, and the Vice V6 DO1 Plus driver. Now, if you're looking at the list thinking, Alex, why are the likes of Tacoma in there? Why are the likes of Mizuno not in there? Well, like I just said, we've tested every single driver this year and we created a shortlist. Like the Oxomity, for example. It was the maddest driver I'd ever tested, and I think it's a very popular one, hence why I have popped it in this test. If you're a slicer, you want to see that. It's super, super draw biased. Now, all these drivers are tested on the same day, and we have tested all of these individually as well. I want to start off with ball speed. So, what one had the best ball speed? Now, this isn't giving anything away in terms of which is the longest this year. This is just what had the best ball speed. So we're going to look through some of the data right now. Now, what came out on top with the fastest ball speed was the Callaway Elite driver at 162 miles an hour. But within 2 miles an hour of that was also the Ping G430, the TaylorMade Qi35, and the Titleist GT3. So only like a 2 mile an hour gap across the top contenders, making it super, super close. And I want to say this, when I tested the Ping G440, one of the big things that they had for this year was the fact that they improved the sound and the acoustics of this driver. And fair play, I'm going to go with it sounded okay. So there's our ball speed numbers. Moving swiftly into club head speed, this is just how quick I can swing it. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was a little bit down on the day in terms of what I have as my max, but operating around 110 miles an hour. It's probably like 2 miles an hour less than normal with every single one, but just to let you know that. The fastest I swung was on average with the Ping G440 and the Titleist GT3. They both averaged 110 miles an hour, with the Callaway Elite coming in at 109 miles an hour average. Every driver sat between that 108 marker to 111 sort of as our data span, but then our averages were led by those three clubs. So if we look at the differences here, like they're minimal, aren't they? Like, it's interesting to see how the aerodynamics and the fitting process slightly influence your club head speed, and how so many of these drivers now have an element of carbon fiber on them to save weight, help improve efficiency, redistribute weight around different parts of the head to make it more forgiving. And there's really a much of a muchness in there. Now, another thing to point out, when you do get fitted for a driver, you will get potentially different shafts because different heads do different things. For example, they might have a slightly different CG position, the face might be a different material as we go into the TaylorMade Qi35. All these provide different spin numbers, different properties, and slightly different head weights. Therefore, a different shaft will have to be had in order to service the correct, most efficient ball numbers when getting fitted. So, it's really interesting that how really it's quite consistent. Like, there's not much in there. Now, this is something that I'm big on. Now, if you look at tour averages with apex of flight, this is sort of somewhere between 96 to 100 feet. The likes of Rory McIlroy are sometimes around the 125 to 115 feet in the air, and I think that's a really just important point for us to know. Now, in terms of the averages, in terms of the apex, and that's its top of its flight, we saw, and I'll be honest with you, I like a flat flight. I like something around 80 to 85. That's like sort of my sweet spot. The Titleist GT3 and the Sub 70 had the highest around the 90 mark. So for players that want to launch the ball better, that might be a really good option. However, the Cobra DS Adapt sat right in the middle of what is my perfect zone, between the 80 and 85 feet. This is what I felt gives me a strong flight both downwind and into the wind. And then if you're talking about playing through the seasons, through the winter, I'm going to get some carry, but then in the summer, I'm still going to get some rollout. Now, as we go into one of our first categories, dispersion. And this is going to be what we're going to call the straightest driver of 2025. Drum roll, please. Now, it's simple. Which driver has the smallest circle? And I'll be honest with you, it was tight. It was really tight. Looking at this data, there's two drivers here that are very, very close. The Cobra DS Adapt, surprised me that, surprised me. I'm not, how can I say, since the F9 I was a huge Cobra fan, and then now in these later models, I just think they've strayed away from Cobra. Like, they've gone more minimalistic in terms of colours, but I like the red, I like the yellow, and it's gone away from that. That's only the colours, I know, but I just felt like the offering of the F9 was so strong, I didn't think the DS Adapt was as good. But what am I to say? Data proves everything. Now, the Cobra DS Adapt and the Callaway Elite had the tightest grouping, which is really, really impressive on these circles on this map. In third place is the TaylorMade Qi10. Everything else, especially the Oxomity and Tour Edge, just started to lose a little bit of tightness. Now, I want to point out the Oxomity driver is made for a slicer to help iron out that draw flight. And what I found when testing it here, it was just sort of overdrawing a little bit to the point where I was missing the fairway on the left. So I feel like I would lose control, but what's really interesting, coming up very soon, we actually have a golfer who slices it to test this driver. So many of you wanted me to do that, so we have. So, first place, Cobra DS Adapt. I think, in my opinion, looking at this data, has just pipped the straightest driver of 2025. There we go. We have our first award of the year. We're in. Okay, let's now move into our second award. The looks and the feel. Now, I know this is so, like, personal, and a lot of people will hate me for this, but I just think Titleist, such a cop-out, I know. But the reason why I like it, and I'm trying to look at this in a very balanced way, the reason why I like it is because it's minimalistic. In the era most driver crowns have gone down this matte look, carbon exposed, sort of really dull finish to the top of their clubs, Titleist have stayed true to that glossy, traditional style. And that really appeals to me. It's probably because I've got this like fantasy of when I was younger, I wasn't good enough to use it. And then now I have a chance to test these products, and Titleist was sort of put on that pedestal. That's probably got something to do with it. But I'm gonna give it, in my sense, the Titleist GT3. The roundness of the shape, the depth of the face, but more importantly, when it sort of frames that golf ball, I'm a huge fan. So I'm gonna give it Titleist in this category. Other things that I would say, the Tour Edge does deserve a special mention. I think the Exotics Max driver comes a long way visually. I also think the updated logo definitely elevates this brand. The matte finish, the strong shaping, it's one of the best looking drivers they have produced. I'm also going to throw sub 70 in here because this is one of the strangest looking drivers. Not strange like Oxomity where it's like totally draw biased, just strange in sort of the domey feel to it and those fins on top. It's sort of like a cross between a Tour Edge and a Ping driver where they've got the little fins on top. But second category, it has to go to Titleist. Now the big one, the one we've all been waiting for, right? The distance data. We're gonna go carry because I think total just leaves it open to interpretation in the sense of what's the ground like? Is it wet? Is it fast? Does it land on a cart path? All these extra things that come into this. So we're gonna go with carry distances just only. I hope you're okay with that. I want to start down at the bottom. Oximeter, an average of 243 yards. I'll be honest, you could feel when you hit this, it didn't quite just have that energy transfer that the others did. It felt a little bit duller off the face. Maybe part of that is the look, and visually, I found it hard to actually hit this. When changing from each of the drivers that we tested in this, it's completely different the way it looks. Like, completely different in the way it looks. And I would also say this. It's probably got the smallest R&D budget. And I hate the fact that I've said that. But unfortunately, in the world we live in, the more money you've got to spend on R&D, the more you're going to create a better product. I know I'm going to get some hate in the comments for that, but I just think that's worth pointing out. I really do. I want to bring the most honest reviews. So that is what we had right down at the bottom. 243 yards. The Cobra DS Adapt takes the win at 259 yards on average. But right behind this was the Callaway Elliott at 258 yards. Barely half a yard difference. I found that really, really interesting. And just to give you some ideas of rollout, I didn't take this into account. Cobra rolled out to 291, Callaway Elliott rolled out to 287, and Oximeter rolled out to 275. Again, I'm not looking at those numbers. We're just giving you the idea of what happened in the test and where these finished. I found that really interesting. So if you look at it this way, let's just do a final verdict of this data, right? The fastest ball speed was the Callaway Elliott. The tightest dispersion was the Cobra DS Adapt. For me, the best looking was the Titleist GT3. The longest carry was the Cobra DS Adapt, and the longest distance was the Cobra DS Adapt. Therefore, the best driver of 2025 has to go to the Cobra DS Adapt. Fair play. Didn't expect it going into this test, but it has risen to the top. A strong offering, it looks like, from Cobra in 2025. I'm highly anticipating what they're going to bring out in 2026, and this is your point to subscribe to this channel. We get all the product before anybody else, and we give you the honest reviews here on the internet of just exactly how these clubs perform. Thanks so much for watching.